Hi all, so welcome back. So in this lecture we'll see about a console IO operation. So we'll mainly see printf and scanf functions. So we have already seen various print how to print all these things. Now we'll see in detail about this printf function, and also we will see about scanf function. So it is mainly to get input from the user. So you know how to print, you can give output to the user using this printf statement. Similarly, scanf means you have to scan the input from the user. So input, if the user types something using the keyboard, that should be got in the program. So how to get that program, whatever that is typed by the person, to get it in the program, we can use this scanf function. So this is the outline of this lecture. We'll see about printf and how to print integer values, how to print float, how to print characters. So we have already seen all these things in the previous lectures by showing when we learn data types, constants, everything you know how to print. Anyway, we'll see once more. Then after that, we have seen the scanf. We will see the scanf statement, how to get integer input, how to get float input from the user, how to get character input from the user. So these are not only the input and output functions, there are some other input and output functions. So you'll see all these functions in later lectures. At present, we will see about printf output function first. Printf, it is one of the main output function. So the function of this printf is to send formatted output to the screen. You should send the formatted. It's a formatted output. That is why we specify that percentage %d, percentage %c, and percentage %f and all. It is a formatted output. So we'll see an example. So we have already seen this hello world example. I will just show that example once more. Let me see that program. So I have various programs. I'll take this hello world.c. So vim hello world.c. Sorry, I'll take that hello program hello.c. Okay, so this is the program hello or hash include stdio.h, and in main function I'm just printing the statement. So double quotes hello world slash n. So this is a hello world program. So this is a printf statement to print a string. So simply it will print whatever is there in the double quotes. We have already seen this program. And slash n, we have seen that it's a new line character. We have already seen this program. I'm not going to explain this program. We have already seen that. Then I'll show another example program about how to print an integer output. Okay, how to print an integer output. So what I will do is I will change this program. I'll insert, I'll use an integer. So I'll declare an integer variable int value equal to 25. You know how to declare a value. So value is an integer type variable, and I'm assigning a value 25 to it. Now I'll just print that statement, printf. Okay, printf, I'll just print it for value is, you know how to print it. You have to use the format specifier, that is percentage %d, and you have to give value for that. Okay, semicolon. So let those statements be there, no problem. You let these two be statements also be there, no problem. So we'll just print. If I want to have print it in new line, then you can use new line character also here, slash n. Or if you want to have space also, you can put a space, then slash n. So I'll just run this program. So I think it's correct. Okay. Now I'll just compile this gcc hello.c. Now if I run this program, a dot out. So you can see value is 25 is printed, and that hello world is also printed. So if you see this program, what I have done is here I have used a value is percentage %d. So we in order to print this, I use percentage %d. So since it is integer type, you have to use percentage %d. Now we'll go to the slide. So here percentage %d format specifier is used to print int types. Okay. And percentage %d inside the quotations will be replaced by the value of that value or that value of that variable. So it is here it is replaced by. So this percentage %d is replaced by this value of this value. So this value is 25. So 25 will be replaced here. So that is what printf does. Okay. Then we will see another example to print this floating point, and I'll use another program, or I'll use the same program here. I'll use the same program. I'll change this thing. Now I'm going to use floating point variables and double. How to print floating point and double things. So instead of int, I'll use float. Okay, I'll use float. I'll use another variable, then number one equal to, so since it's float there should be some decimal. Even if it is there no decimal, it will show some 0.00 like that. Okay, then I'll insert another, I'll declare some other double value, number 2 equal to some value 125.9. Okay, now I want to print this value is I want to print the number 1. So I want to print it, number 1. So I'll just replace this number 1. Number 1 is here, it is not percentage %d. So we have to change that because we have to print number 1. So for that, it is, since it is float, you have to use percentage %f. And you have to replace this thing number 1. Okay, now that is perfect. Now I am going to use the same printf statement. Let me copy this thing. Now I'll print number 2 here. Number 2, I am going to print number 2 here. But the thing is that number 2, it is a double number. So you cannot use percentage %f here. Since it is double, what you have to use, percentage %lf should be used. And instead of number 1, you have to use number 2. And if you want, you can replace this thing. So let me replace this thing, these two. This line is not necessary, so I'll just delete that line. So escape dd will delete that line. Okay, so I have just simply used floating point. I have declared a floating point and that double number. In order to print it floating, you have to use the format specifier percentage %f. So percentage %f will be replaced by the value of number 1. Value is 25.6. And similarly for printing double number, you have to use percentage %lf. So instead of percentage %lf, the value of number 2 will be replaced. That is 125 will be replaced. Now I'll save it and quit. Now I will again compile this. It is hello.c. Okay, I will compile it. Now if you see that number 1, it is 25.6 will be printed, and number 2, that double value 125.900 will be printed. So this way you can print this floating and double. So percentage %f format is required to print float values, and percentage %lf to print double values. Now I will see how to print character values. So character values, we have already seen this program to print this character value. I'll use a new program. Let it be print.c. Then how to print character values. So hash. So I'll type a new program. So hash include stdio.h. Then int main. Then braces. Then after that, in order to declare character, you have to use some char. equal to, we have already seen this thing, character A, and within single quotes you have to specify. Now if I want to print it, what you have to do is printf character is, you can use, so in order to print character you have to use percentage %c. We have already seen the previous example, and you have to use character should be printed and return 0. Okay, you can simply use this thing q. Now you have to compile this, print.c. Now we have to run this program. So for that dot slash out I dot out, you can see that character A, characters A is printed. We have not used any new line character. That is why the prompt is the same line. Okay. So in this way you can print characters. So in order to print characters, we have to use percentage %c. So percentage %c format specified to print characters. So that's all about printf statement. Next is about scanf statement. So how to use scanf. So we have not seen the scanf statement. Now if I want to get values from the user, if user needs to input some values, we have to use the scanf statement. So it is one of the commonly used function to take input from the user. So scanf function reads formatted input from the standard input, that is keyboards. So whatever we type from the keyboard, it should be got inside the programs. For that we can use the scanf function. So we will see an example for that thing. So we will use the same program. Now I'll delete this thing. I'll delete this thing also. Okay. Now I'll declare now how to get a integer value. How to get an integer value from the user. So I'll declare a variable. Now I'll ask the user to enter a value, printf enter an integer. I'm asking to enter, so this will be displayed at the screen. Enter an integer will be displayed here, and I'll close it. So I'm just printing enter an integer. So that string will be displayed, something like hello world. So I had enter an integer. Now I am going to get the value from the user. So I have to use scanf function. So it is similar to printf, and I have to use double quotes. Now inside the double quotes, I want to get an integer value. That format should be specified. So percentage %d is the format specifier. Okay, percentage %d. And in order to get that value, what I have to use is value. So you cannot use. So this is the way you have to use printf. But only thing here it is, there in printf you will simply specify value, but here we cannot specify like value here. You have to use the ampersand symbol also. So ampersand value should be given. So ampersand value. So ampersand value means, what it means is, ampersand specifies actually the address of this value. So value, it is actually a variable, and that value should be stored in some address location. For that, what you have to do is, in scanf you have to use this ampersand symbol. It means whatever you get as input, that integer value will be stored in the address location of that value. So address location, it may be 5,000 or 6,000, some address location will be there. So that ampersand value specifies the address of that value. So you will learn about this address operator later when you learn about pointers and all. So now you have to see that whenever you use the scanf, in order to store that value in that value variable, you have to use this ampersand value. It means it is to store, it specifies the address of that value. So you have to store that value in the address location. So if you are entering 25, it will be stored in this address location. Okay. Now if I want to print this thing statement, you can print that statement. Printf the number is, you can use percentage %d, percentage %d. Okay, percentage %d, and if you want you can use slash n also, and you can print that value. So for printing you need not use ampersand symbol, so it's an ordinary print that you have already seen. But only thing, when you use scanf, it is to you'll get getting that value using this percentage d. So some value will be entered and this value has to be stored in that value. So we have to store it in the address location. For that you have to use an ampersand before that variable name, ampersand value. Okay. But for printing you can simply use value itself. Okay. Now I'll just clear it. Now what I have used is vimprint.c. Okay. So I will just compile that gcc print.c. Now I have to run, there are no errors, a dot out. So enter an integer. Now the cursor is like this. Now that the first statement is printf statement, that enter an integer will be there. Now the cursor will be like this. Now you have to enter some integer value and you have to press enter key. When you press enter key, then only it will go to the execution, will go to the next line. When you press enter key, then the next statement, that is the printf. So when you enter the 34, that will be stored in the value address location, and when you next statement is printf number is, and that percentage, that value will be 34 will be printed. So in this way you can, again if you run this program, if you want to enter some other integer 56, I am entering this value, and when you press that enter or return key, that number is 56 will be printed. So this way you can enter an integer value. Okay. So in order to enter this value, we have to use percentage d as format specifier, and you have to use the ampersand value also. Okay. So percentage d format specifier use inside the scanf function to take integer input. When the user enters an integer, it is stored in the value variable. So that in that address location. So that is why ampersand is used. So in this, it is stored in the value variable. The next is how to enter floating point and double numbers. Okay, we will use the same program. We will enter some, ask the user to enter some floating point and integer values. So what we will do is we will declare some floating point. Okay, float number one, then double number two. Okay. Now I'll just printf enter, and instead of integer number, I'll ask to enter a floating number. Floating number. Okay, I'm asking the person to enter a floating point number. So the format specified to enter a floating point number, it is not percentage d, it is percentage f. So we have already seen when we studied printf. So for floating point, it is percentage f. So here instead of the value, sorry, so instead of you have to replace with number 1. Okay. So you are entering a floating point number here. So it will be stored in the address location. That is why we are using ampersand number 1. Okay. Now next you are asking, I'll copy these two statements again. I'll paste it here. Now you are, the second thing you are asking to print, you are asking to enter a double number. Okay, now we are asking him to enter a double number. Okay, enter a double number. Okay, enter a double number, and for the format specifier for this is, since it is double number, you will need to enter LF, and ampersand number 2 should be entered, number 2. So it is number 2 is double number. Okay. Now you can just print statement can be used number 1. So you can print number 1 here, number 1. So number 1, it is not necessary that you should use the first number, so you can simply print first number, like that. You can, first number is, so instead of percentage d, if I want to print that number, it is, I want to print number 1. So the format specified to be used is here, since it is number 1 is floating point number, so I have to use percentage f, should be used, percentage f. Now I'll copy the same code again. I'll copy this. I'll copy it. Then I'll copy. Here I have to use. I have to print second number. Okay, second number. Second number is percentage. So instead of second number is, it's a double number. So I have to replace with LF, and you have to print number 2 and enter the semicolon. Okay. So here I am declared two numbers, number 1 and number 2, and I am asking them to enter. Sorry, I'll delete this thing. Okay, enter a floating point number and enter a floating point number, and you are using scanf statement, and it's percentage f ampersand number 1, so that whatever number that is entered will be stored in the address location of number 1. That is why ampersand number 1. Then you are printing it, printing enter a double number, so it waits for the input, and you are scanning it, and it will be stored in the address location of number 2. So you are using percentage LF since it is double value. Then you are printing the first number as percentage f because it is floating point, second number as percentage LF since it is number 2. So I'll save it and quit. Now I'll compile it, gcc print.c. Now I'll run that program. You can see that you are asked to enter a floating point number. I'll enter a floating point number 34.5. Then you are asked to enter a double number. Now I am entering 56.7, 8, any number you can enter. Then those two numbers, first number is that first floating number will be printed 34.5, the number 2 will be printed 56.79. So in this way you can get input from using scanf statement, float and double input. So percentage f for float and percentage lf for double out input. Now how to get character input? Now how can you get character input? So we will see how to get a character input with an example. So I'll use print.c. I'll use another program, or I'll use the same program, print.c. So I'll delete all these lines. So for deleting you can use escape, and on the line which you want to delete, you place that cursor, and after that you simply press dd, escape dd, so that line will be deleted. So if I want to escape dd, so you place that cursor on that line and you can simply delete that line. Okay, so in this way you can delete a line using the Vim editor. You can check for various commands there. Now I am going to print a character, so I am declaring a character variable. Now I am asking the user to enter a character. Enter a character. So I am asking the user to enter a character value. Okay. Now scanf statement, so that whatever that is being entered can be stored. So for character it is percentage %c format specifier, and similarly here we have to use the address operator ampersand chr, so that it is stored in that address location. Now if I want to print of what is entered, you can enter So your entered percentage C. I'll simply say percentage C. Okay, and CHR. So in this way you can print, then return statement is there. So now this is a complete program. So you are asking for per scanf, you have to use percentage C ampersand CHR. Now you will run this program, compile it, and you can run this program. You can see you are asked to enter a character. Now I'll enter some R and press enter key. Your entered R will be printed here. So the entered R will be printed here. Now if I enter multiple character, what happens you will see. ER. Now only the first character will be taken here. Only E will be taken because we can store only a single character. So that second character will be ignored. So you cannot enter multiple characters. Only single character can be entered when we use this characters for scanner for character. Okay. So when a character is entered by the user in the above program, the character itself is not stored. So the thing to be noted here is the character is not stored here. Actually, this character is not stored here. So an integer value is stored here. Actually, when you use this program, it will see this program. So in this program, actually the character, if you type A, that A is not stored here. It is actually the a value is stored here. An integer value is stored instead of that character. So every character has a value for that. Okay. So every character has some values. So in order to here, it is not an integer value, ASCII value is stored. We will see that ASCII value, then you will understand that thing. So when we display that value, percentage %C text format, the entire character is displayed here. I will show another program here. So how to print that ASCII value? So I have mentioned that it is not actually the character that is known, it is some other integer value. So even if you enter A, that A is not stored. There is an ASCII code for that A value. So that integer value will be saved there. So if you use percentage %D to display the character, I will show that with an example. I will use the same program. I am entering that character's value here. Okay, I am using the same program here. Now I'll print it again here. Okay, let it be the same thing. I am printing it here. Now if I want to print that ASCII value of that character, I can see what is the ASCII value of that entered character. So ASCII, you can use any smaller anything. So it actually stands for American Standard Code for Information Interchange. So for all the characters, there is some integer value. So we will not be storing A as such. There is some integer value. So if I want to print that value, you simply use percentage %D, and you can print that CHR value. Okay. So here, if you use percentage %C, that character itself will be printed. If you use percentage %D, then that ASCII value of that character will be printed. Okay, that's the difference. Now we will see some example, then you will understand what is this. I'll clear this thing. So I'll compile this thing. After that, I'll run this program. Now enter a character. I'll simply enter a character and press enter key. So I'll use some print. I'll use some new line character. Otherwise, it will be difficult to understand. Okay, I'll use some new line character. Slash n here. Okay. Also slash n after this. Okay. Now I'll compile it again and I'll run this program. Now you are asked to enter a character. Now I am entering a character. The value you entered is percentage %D. When you use percentage %D, A will be printed. And the ASCII value of A is 97. So similarly, there are other values also. If you want to print I'll enter 4. 4, even though it is an integer, it is also considered as a character. Then the ASCII value of 4, it is 42. Similarly, if I want to get the ASCII value of capital A, you can enter A and C. So you have entered as A and the ASCII value of A is 64. Similarly, if we want to see the at symbol, at the rate symbol, if you want to find the at the rate symbol, so you entered at and the ASCII value is 64. Okay. Now if I want to enter some other character like a dollar, percentage, if you want to see the percentage, the ASCII value is 37. So you can see the ASCII value of any character. If I want to see capital B, since capital A is 65, then automatically capital B will be the next number. It will be 66. So 66. So you can see all this character. Or small b, if I enter small b, it will be 98. So it is like there are some ASCII characters. So there is some. So actually the character, when you use the character statement, so when you use this enter this character, actually the character is not stored, it is the ASCII value that is stored. If you enter A, that 97 will be stored at the address location, and when you print that using that percentage C, that value will be displayed instead of that ASCII, that will be printed. If you use percentage D and you ask to print CHR, then the ASCII value will be. So percentage C, that character will be displayed, and percentage D, the ASCII value will be displayed. Okay. So in order to print that ASCII value, if you use this ASCII percentage D, then its ASCII value is printed. Then in order to enter multiple values, how to get multiple values? It is possible to get multiple values. If I want to enter multiple values, it is also possible. So I will use the same program. I'll just escape dd. I'll delete this thing. Okay, I'll insert something in A. So I'm going to get multiple values that include float B. Now I am asking the user to enter printf, sorry, enter an integer and a floating number. So I am asking the user to enter an integer number and a floating point number. So in order to get multiple values, what you have to use? So scanf, and inside double quotes. So in order to get multiple values, you have to use percentage %d. So first number is an integer. So I want to get an integer value, you have to use percentage %d. Then in order to get the next floating point number, you can use floating point number, and you have to close the double quotes and comma, and the first value should be stored in at the integer value, that is ampersand a. So that is the first integer value, comma, then for percentage %f it should be stored at b. So ampersand b, and you can close this. Then you can print this, and if I want to print that thing, you can print that thing here, multiple values. In order to print multiple values, how to print multiple values? You can use, you entered percentage %d, so percentage %d and percentage %f. Okay, I'll delete all these things. I'll use a slash in here. Now instead of this thing, I have to use a comma b. So what it does is, sorry, so what it does is, here I am asking to enter an integer and floating number. Now percentage %d. So when the first number is entered, so it will be stored in as an integer value. Then the second number, it will be stored in the address location of b. Then you are printing, you are entered percentage %d and percentage %f. So percentage %d will be replaced by the value of a, and percentage %f will be replaced with the value of b. Okay, now we will run this program. I'll clear this gcc print dot c. Now there are no errors. Dot slash a dot out. So you are asked to enter an integer value and there. So I'll enter 23 as the integer value and next floating point number 56.7. Now your print percentage d will be replaced by 23 and percentage d, f will be replaced by 56.77. So if you see this program, so here scanf, you have to use percentage d. Then at the address location, the first integer will be stored. At the address location of b, the second floating point number will be stored. And when you print, percentage d and percentage f will be replaced by a value and b value. So that is what's happening here. Okay. So that is how we can print multiple values. Then these are the data types and their format specifiers for integer character. So we will be mainly using only these four format specifiers. For integer we have to use percentage %g, for character we have to use percentage %c, float percentage %f, and for double we have to use percentage %lf. Then there are other data types. We have already seen data types. So there are various other data types, short int, unsigned. For short int, you can use percentage %hd. If you are declaring something as unsigned int, then you have to use percentage %u. Long int, it is percentage %li. Then if you are using as long int, then it is percentage %lli. Unsigned long int, you can use percentage %lu. Unsigned long int, it is percentage %llu. Then signed character, it is percentage %c. Unsigned, it is also percentage %c. Long double, it is percentage capital %lf. So you won't be using all these things always. You will be mainly using these four things. So you have to learn percentage E, percentage C, percentage L. So there are other format specifiers. If you are declaring as a long int variable and all, you have to use this format specifiers. Okay. You won't be using all these things always. Thank you.